Welcome back to Leveraging Leadership, where we unpack the art of business leadership. I'm your host, Emily Sander, Chief of Staff turned Executive Leadership Coach. This show is all about finding your points of greatest influence and leveraging them to better serve those around you. All right, listener question time. Anonymous asks, we brought on a business development person to actually make calls, but somehow they've become our unofficial graphic designer, website strategist, and HubSpot interior decorator. Every day, there's a new color-coded pipeline or flyer idea, just no calls happening. The ideas aren't wrong, but at this point, we need revenue, not rebranding. Do we coach them, or do we just call it what it is and move on? All right. Of course, I'm going to say coach them. If you haven't already, I kind of assume that you have, but just to cover that base, yes, give them feedback, coach them, give them the tools they need. I think that most BD, business development roles are fairly clear at the outset when they're brought on board, but maybe not. Like maybe things have changed since you hired this person. Maybe things were going so quickly and you were scaling so fast at the time, someone didn't really have a clear job description, or the onboarding and training process was non existent at that time. So if you have any of those types of scenarios, I would absolutely go back and just level set on all that stuff. So there might be an establishing of expectations or resetting expectations from what was originally done. So it might be things like, it sounds like it's things like, hey, look, this is in scope for your role, and these types of things are out of scope for your role, right? So you're like a business development rep. So you're like, we don't need you on the website or whatever. Now, within that, there's a little nuance that I would say here. To me, there's a difference between, let me just give an example here. If they're saying, I listened to a whole bunch of people talk. I've done hundreds of these prospecting calls now, and I always get these three questions in some form or shape or another. I always get these three questions. And I've tried like different talk tracks around this. And what I found to work well is this analogy, this visual that I can describe to people. They go, oh, I get it. Okay, no, that really resonates. It clicks with them. And then they're going, okay, so I tried to create like a graphic design around that visual. Okay, to me, that's like legitimate. That's like you're doing your job, you're listening, you've come up with a creative solution, and now you're trying to create a visual that maybe you can show on your screen when you're talking to them, or maybe you can send them in the follow up email, or maybe you're proactively sending this out before you talk to them and say, hey, here's what I want to talk to you about. Can we jump on a call like 15 minutes and discuss further type of thing? To me, that's actually them doing their job in a really great way. If you're like, yes, Emily, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about them trying to be the website strategist and they're going back and forth on this shade of purple for the button or that shade of purple for the button and this background color versus that background color. It's like, our website works fine. Like, we don't need you doing that. Then I would just make a distinction between what's more in their wheelhouse and more of a legitimate activity that's related to what they're trying to do and the outcome you want, and frivolous, distracting activities. Okay. And if they do have ideas about marketing collateral or assets they would need, give them the place to send those. So, for instance, it might be like, submit this ticket over here, and then we queue them, and then I help the graphic design team pick which one is top priority or whatever. So, kind of tell them where to go with that, with those ideas, type of thing. That's just an example. Okay, so let's say that all these things have happened. Emily, the role is clear at the outset. We did have a robust onboarding and training process. Everyone knows where to go to submit these things for marketing assets. We have a whole website team. And as far as like HubSpot interior decorator, we have a whole sales operations team. Like, we have a CRM system. It's not like this is our first and only BD person and we are so new, we don't have stages of our pipeline built into HubSpot. Like, if this person is trying to do that and get it off the ground, that's to me is different than like, no. Like, we have all this established. Just make the freaking calls type of thing. So I would parse all of this stuff out. So all of this has happened. I would coach them in the sense of providing Clarity and providing a more robust accountability apparatus, let's just say. This is not code for be mean to them, right? It's providing clarity and providing more accountability. So that could come in the form of making sure they're clear about their scope of work and what's inside that and what's outside that. And obviously, most salespeople have like quotas. So most people are really attuned to that. But if they're not, make sure that's crystal clear. We expect you to make 200 calls a week. And of those 200 calls, 25 should lead to demos that you hand off to this other team member. And of those, we know three are usually closed won. So your job, BD rep, is to make that initial outreach, email, phone call, whatever, and get the appointment or get the full demo with this other sales team member. And we've typically seen these talk track works. We have these marketing collateral assets you can use. And your job is to smile and dial and to get these people on the phone with this other team member. So making that part of it crystal clear as well. And then maybe in terms of accountability, I've heard I was just talking to someone who was on a sales team and they were like, "Emily, I think we have a problem with communication and feedback to our reps." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Like what makes you say that?" And he said, "Well, I was talking to one of my managers and they said they only talk to their reps every quarter." And I was like, "I'm sorry, did you say every month?" They're like, "No, no, no, like 4 times a year." And I was like, "That's a problem." That's a problem, right? So if that's like the cadence you have with your reps, that's too infrequent, right? You should be meeting with them weekly, if not more than that, or at least a month. I've been around sales operations teams, BD teams, sales teams where they have to send dailies. They have to send a daily report out to their boss about the activities they did that day, and they would get feedback and coaching. The manager would listen to a recorded call that their sales rep did, and they would go through it with them, not to beat up on them, but just to have a feedback loop of like, "Hey, this is really good. I actually want to share this line with the team because this is awesome. Like you came up with that, super creative. Here, I would use this line of questioning. I might change this word. It softens it a little bit. It makes them more like it's their decision versus you telling them what to do and just having feedback like that. So there might be more of an accountability and also training opportunities within the structure they have. So I would take a look at that, make sure that they're getting the feedback in the way and the frequency they need it to be. So you've made things crystal clear, right, about what their role is and is not. You've made the quota an expectation of activity and level of activity and what time duration they have to make that activity happen, right? And then you've given them the checkpoints. We're not letting you loose for a quarter. We've got at least a monthly check in, if not a weekly, if not a daily check in or feedback loop for you. So all these things need to be in place. And then if it's still to the point where it's like, Emily, they won't make the actual calls. All right, let's say all of that is in place. And you're like, Emily, like, look, they've got all that. They're just distracting themselves. They're just avoiding making the calls. And part of me goes like, I totally get that because cold calling is hard. It's like one of the reasons I don't do it because like it's hard and you get rejected and you get hung up on and it's hard to call strangers out of the blue and have a conversation with them. That's a skill, that's an art, right? But that's their job in this case. So sometimes calling that out and highlighting that and almost like hitting the nail on the head and saying, it seems like you're doing these other activities to distract yourself or avoid making the actual calls. Pause. See what their response is. It could open up some conversations in directions that you don't predict, where it's like, oh, I didn't know that, you were doing it for this reason, or oh, I didn't know that your mindset was like this, or oh, I didn't know that you kind of go through these lulls of, yep, I kind of got to get myself revved back in. I'm so sorry. I do this. I know I do this, but I'm stuck. And now I know what I need to do to get myself out of that. Now that you've said that, and now that it's explicit, that it's apparent that I'm in this stage of things or whatever. So you might hit it on the head like that. If that step doesn't resonate, you can skip it. It's just an idea. But beyond that, if you've gone through all of that and you've gated through all of that, you've given someone every opportunity, you've made it crystal clear, you've waited a certain amount of time. So you set the expectation, gave them the tools they need, and gave them like at least like a week, if not two, to like see if they can do the thing. If you're like, we've done all that, then it might be time to move on. It might be time to, like you said, just call it what it is and move on. Okay, and right here, a guideline for you. This is a universal guideline for not just this particular situation, but for any team member you have. If you know that it's not a good fit, and if you know that eventually this person is going to have to be exited, do that sooner rather than later. So there might be extenuating circumstances where, hey, Emily, we have to wait a week or two for this and this reason for this person to come back from leave or whatever. Like, okay, fine. But as soon as you know, like, this is not going to work out and it's not good for us and it's not good for them, maybe they're miserable. Maybe they dread coming to work every day because they know they're not quite chinning the bar. As soon as you know that and you've made that decision, take action on it and exit them. Do it with grace and dignity and all those things, professional, but don't drag it on. Do not drag it on for weeks and weeks, months and months. I have seen this happen and I have done it a few times myself, and it's not the way to go. I'm just telling you. Like, if you know in your heart of hearts that this is not the right fit, but yet it's, give them one more try. Like, just let them do one more month and see what happens. Or we gave them this thing and, like, maybe it'll be different. I really don't think so. I know it's not going to make a difference, but let me just try this thing out here. Um, they're a warm body. It's better than nothing. It's a pain in the ass to hire new people and they're just in there, they're doing their thing. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's bad for you, it's bad for the team, and it's probably bad for the person. So as soon as you have made that decision and made that distinction of, we've done everything we can, this isn't a good fit, it's time to move on, then move on. Then take action on that. So that would be my general guideline there. Another guideline or just rubric or way you can think about it is, I would much rather work with someone I have to hold back, like, whoa, 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 like, hold on, hold on, hold on. I have to rein in and I have to hold back versus someone, I got to cattle prod you to do your job. I'm going to have to prod you at every step of the way to get you to do your own freaking job. I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this. So I've worked with both types of people. I would much rather the former than the latter. The former has its, like, cons where it's like, dude, like, I said draft the email, not send the email. Now I got the email out to the CEO. Da, 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 da. I didn't say to do that. You got ahead of your skis there. But I'd much rather have that in a good spirit, in a professional way, than someone I'm like, come on, buddy, here we go. Okay, here we go to the next step. All right. Okay, oh my gosh, they're sliding backward. No, 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 here we go. And I have to kind of, tie a rope around it and drag it up a hill like every step of the way. That's dead weight. That's no good. So that's another kind of way to look at this. Hey, do they have, like, the chutzpah, like the drive, like the oomph in them, or is it like, hey, I got like a bump on a log. We're dealing with, like, sludge here. Like, there's not a lot I can work with here. So those are just two things to think about in there. All right. So hopefully something I've said is useful and you can take it and run with it and will help you make a decision or come to a good place with this scenario you've described. But thank you for submitting your question. And if anyone else listening has a question they want covered on an episode, then feel free to email me at emily@nextlevel.coach or find me on LinkedIn or drop it in the comments. And with that, I will catch you next week on Leveraging Leadership.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.